Welcome back to Token Intelligence. AI is changing the way that we work, and Token Intelligence shows you the state of the art in AI, helps you cut through the noise, and helps you apply wisdom so you can become an effective leader in the age of AI. And John, you have a question for me today, which I hopefully can break down.
Yeah, super excited to dive in. The question of the day, is AI even a big deal?
Is AI even a big deal?
Or as big a deal, as we're making of it?
Why do you think that's an important question? I guess would be my first question.
So I think we've had multiple cycles. Let's just talk markets first. We've had these like multiple pretty big cycles, especially in the tech world, of kind of these doom cycles and then this hype and then more doom.
Right.
And I think it's really hard to think clearly if you're just going to be processing news cycles, especially in AI.
Yep.
And I think the idea here is to think about it in more of a framework, and then almost like I'm a data person, so almost like how do we plot AI on some graphs?
Yeah,
That's
sure.
how I'm thinking about it.
Okay, great. Well, you're in luck because I have thought about this way too much. And I think that you can define technological impact across 3 matrices. And so I think we should try to do that today.
Okay. So the first one, let's start with maybe breadth and depth.
Yep.
So if you want to maybe define that.
Yep.
And then help us dig in. So we're imagining, when we talk matrices, I think we're imagining 4-box
Yep.
grids where you've got upper right corners high, lower left corners low, and then you've got
exactly. So just a typical quadrant,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And yep. So breadth and depth, I think, is the first one, and I think this is very familiar to everyone, right? So. Let's just run through a bunch of technologies where they've had really wide impact. And a lot of times, really high impact technologies have both breadth and depth. So they would be like high, right? Mm-hmm. But the internal combustion engine, right? I mean, breadth and depth. Mm-hmm. So you can think about, of course, like your yard tools probably, maybe becoming more electric at this point, but
right.
For many, many decades, yard tools to cruise ships, right? That's a very wide breadth, right?
Right.
But also depth, right? Because it wasn't just moving things around or equipment, right? It changed actually the way that factories ran and other things like that, right? And so it also went very, very deep.
Okay, I've got one for you to plot for me.
Okay, plot. Yep, I'm ready.
GPS.
Yes, GPS. So GPS is really interesting because I think GPS speaks to the time scale of breadth and depth. So GPS, global positioning satellite. Most of us just know this as, opening Google Maps or Apple Maps, on our phone. But it's navigation, right? So it talks to a satellite that can sort of pinpoint the location of the device that you're sending a signal from. And it really revolutionized navigation. But early on, it revolutionized navigation in depth, not in breadth, right? Because it was primarily used for industrial applications and military applications. And so, of course, in those 2 fields, when you think about things like mining or offshore drilling or other significant, multi-billion-dollar international industrial applications or military applications where you're willing to pay a lot of money to be precise about where you are in the world, it went very deep there initially. Right? And the consumer technology hadn't caught up. And so this is an example of something that initially had it was very high depth initially, but low on breadth.
Yes.
And then eventually became high on both, And so But time is a very interesting component of each of these.
Yeah. Yeah, I think high breadth typically is going to be business and consumer. When you cross like
Yes.
both of those lines, I think that's what we're referring to
Yep.
with the high breadth.
Yep, agreed. So that's the first matrix, I would say. So when you're evaluating a technology, is there breadth and depth, and then which is happening on which time
Right.
scale?
Which I think said most simply is, does it affect my personal life and my life at work?
Yes.
If the answer is yes to both, then like, yeah, you've probably got something that's high.
Yep. And most often, I would say depth happens first commercially because there's an ability for companies to pay to
Yes.
solve a problem,
Pay more.
and then
yeah.
that technology filters out to consumers.
Yep.
Yep.
All right. So our next graph is rate of improvement and rate of adoption.
Yes. This is a very interesting one because the technology can improve very quickly, but the amount that it improves is only practical if that improvement can actually be implemented by the end
Yes.
user or the buyer.
I think I have a good example of this one.
Yep.
Okay. Fiber, like
Yes.
internet.
Yep.
Because the technology has been around for years and years and years. But as far as the widespread like infrastructure of like everything moving to completely fiber, like we're not there.
Totally.
And it's the capital cost, right?
Yep. That's
Yeah.
a great example.
And nobody's arguing that like it's like, oh, coax is better.
Yep.
But
100%.
capital problem.
Yeah, for sure. Like, would everything be better? Would experiences online be better? Apps be better? I mean, there's so many things that could be better if everyone had fiber, but it's not easy to adopt. I actually think the iPhone is a very interesting example across all of these.
Okay.
But on this one in particular, if you remember when the iPhone launched, it was unbelievably expensive. I mean, it was
Yeah.
a statement of affluence
Yeah, sure.
to own an iPhone, right? And now it's seemingly ubiquitous, right?
Right.
I mean, you travel around the world and you see iPhones absolutely everywhere.
Well, outside of the U.S., years after it was more affordable here, it was still that.
it was still the
statement.
same way. Yeah, yeah.
And I guess I can't speak for sure globally, but I think you're right. I think now, because there's so many different models and you've got the old model versus the new model, like you can pretty much have a person at each price point.
Oh, I've definitely like taken iPhones to different countries, like visiting friends, and they would say, "Hey, can you go buy a bunch of iPhones?"
Oh, really? Like in the past?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely,
Awesome.
yeah.
You
I
might-
mean, not that long ago,
Yeah.
a year and a half ago, because they're just so unbelievably expensive to procure in certain countries.
What do you think the markup is, or used where it was a couple years ago?
I don't know. 2 or 3x probably.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
very expensive.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, right? And so there's like price was a barrier to adoption,
Yeah.
right? Even though the technology is, advancing very, very quickly. So that is that to me is one of the most interesting ones, where it's like, how quickly is the technology itself, improving,
Yep.
which is a big deal, but practically people can only sort of consume that as quickly as the rate of adoption allows.
Right. All right. You ready for our third one?
I'm ready.
All right. Novelty versus prescience. And I love that this was Eric's idea.
Prescience and precedence, I think, is like, those are two, I think both words are appropriate.
You like the words. You like both of those words.
I do love both of those words.
Yeah.
This is really interesting. So I'll go back to so let's look at two things that we've talked about. GPS and the iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
GPS, I think, was truly novel in its first implementation, in that
Yeah.
the ability to ping a satellite with your location and to get a reading of where you are was truly novel.
Right.
And I mean, people had presented theories of this, or, maybe even, sort of, I'm sure there were a lot of papers written about this, but actually to be able to do this at a wide scale with a satellite orbiting the Earth, was pretty novel. Right. And so it's like, okay, well, wow, this is going to change a lot of different things. And of course it did. And that goes back to breadth and depth. And so, of course, in depth, it changed, military and commercial applications first. And so that was very, very novel, right? But if you look at the iPhone, it's easy to look at the iPhone as novel, but it wasn't.
Right.
In that you can access the internet on a mobile device. That's not new.
Right.
Email, not new. Text messaging, not new.
Phone call,
not new. I love that I didn't even list that. So the iPhone was a novel form factor, but as a technology,
barely, right?
Barely, yes. I mean, even the touchscreen, not new, right?
Yep.
But packaged and executed in a way that was very, very, very high impact, obviously.
Because it was essentially one decision, and it was the keyboard decision, which
Yep.
was very controversial.
Very controversial, yep.
Because we're going to get rid of the keyboard. Like that was the decision, in a nutshell.
And so this to me is, novelty is very difficult to measure. Like, is something truly novel? Is there anything new under the sun? But there are, again, if you think about GPS, like truly novel. The iPhone was, it changed so many things. It brought about the mobile revolution. But interestingly, it wasn't novel. And now if you want to get even more complicated mathematically, that influences like rate of adoption, right? If something has precedent, or it is a prescient like invention, then that means it's easier to adopt, right? Because it means that I'm doing something that I did before. It's just in a new form factor that's like way, way better, right? And so the reason that I think these three matrices are really interesting is because I think the limitation of these is time, right? Like how quickly each of these happen independently. And I'm sure that someone at some university has done a lot of math to figure out, an actual model for this. But it's pretty hard to think about technology that is in the high quadrant across all three matrices.
Right.
I mean, I've thought about it a good bit, and it's pretty difficult. And I'll narrow that scope slightly. Like, let's say in the first, decade or maybe even half decade of the technology being in existence, right? So if you look at GPS, if you look at the iPhone, if you look at, and we could pick one and analyze it, you sort of see like very quickly whether there is precedent. You can see whether it's has breadth or depth initially, and then whether it will sort of expand out of breadth or depth, and anyways, all that to say that when a technology is high, on each of them in the top right quadrant, early in its life, I think that's a pretty clear indicator that it is going to have a significant impact.
Right. Yeah, we started this out, right? Is it a big deal? And basically, how do we know?
Yep.
And with the three quadrants, we've got high scores on all three.
Yes.
Seems like. Yeah.
Which is the case with AI, right? So breadth and depth. I mean, so let me switch it here. I'm going to have you analyze AI because I talked about a bunch of historical stuff, but breadth and depth. So AI breadth and AI depth. Like, is it having an impact in both of those areas?
Yeah.
Or on both?
Yeah. So as far
factors.
as AI breadth,
yep.
Fastest, growing technology ever. Huge almost instant adoption.
Yep.
To millions and millions, and then billions of users.
Mm-hmm.
And then across a lot of domains.
Yep.
So knowledge work, like software, finance,
Totally.
all of these things.
So breadth and depth. I think a good example is software engineering is depth, because it has completely changed the way that profession's done. But almost every knowledge worker is using it in some way, right?
Which, I mean, even think about the term knowledge worker. Like, did you talk about knowledge workers all the time until AI?
I didn't. Actually,
I didn't either.
But I've written a lot about it. Since
Yeah,
then.
but I remember the term from like business books essentially.
Yeah,
but like
totally.
it wasn't something that people talked about.
Right.
So we needed this new big category called a knowledge
Right.
worker to talk about this technology when we never would have categorized all those people together before.
Yep. And then rate of improvement and rate of adoption. This one, I think, is where it's very interesting,
Right.
compared to historical technologies.
The rate of improvement question is confusing because there's a million different ways to benchmark it, right?
Yep.
And adoption is also confusing because there's a million different ways to measure it. And
Yeah, but let's break this down to I agree. If you want to be scientific about it, like, what are we measuring?
right,
But if we think about rate of improvement, if you just look at image generation
yeah,
over the last 24 months, the rate of improvement is mind-boggling,
yeah,
right? It's gotten so much better.
right.
Right.
And we've talked about writing because you do a lot of writing for your job. I've been doing some writing recently too, and that one's frustrating because it feels like it hasn't improved along the same axis. But I think we had the discussion of that probably was just core to the 2020, 2021,
Right.
like that was
Because they're large language models.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a point where we as the general public didn't get to participate in the up.
Right. Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. So,
But in aggregate, the models have improved dramatically. I would
Right.
say, like, at a minimum year over year, and probably
Right.
at a faster rate than that.
Right.
And
there's a bunch of axes of improvement too.
Sure.
Like speed, quality across like
context window. I mean,
all of the things. And we've definitely seen it in image. We've seen it in video too.
yeah,
We've seen it in ability to code for sure over the last year.
100%.
Writing's probably the most debatable, but
Sure.
also the most subjective.
Sure, totally.
So
I think objectively, major improvements on a very short time scale and can be adopted immediately. I mean, they're just
every improvement is
available
immediately.
immediately.
Right.
Right. And so that high is really interesting. There's no, I mean, if we want to get into nitty gritty details, like, there are some price barriers, but not like the iPhone.
Right. Yep.
It's very different than the iPhone, where it's
you already have the $200 version, right? Because there's open source or Chinese models that are already at that $200 version if you want that, all the way up to
Yep. And so there really isn't like a major price barrier to the improvements, right? And so you can just sort of immediately access them, which is really interesting. That to me is one of the most interesting matrices.
You know what another interesting thing is with AI? That it's filled in a lot of like gaps that we just never got to. So for example, mobile apps. Like we never had full like parity between apps we use every day for business between mobile and desktop. We never got there, like in general.
Right.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah. And the AI is like, it is really
and
interesting.
AI is like, for the most part, mobile native and desktop, and there's like pretty high parity between the two solutions.
Yeah. Well, I think that kind of goes into the third matrix, which is novelty and precedent, right? So AI is very novel, right? Like, so, and what's interesting is it's high, and this one is very, very interesting. it is it is truly novel because it's generative, but we are used to like chat, right? And we are used to like recommendations being made and summaries, right? And so there is a ton of precedent for this, but it is actually truly novel.
Right.
And that's a weird one.
Yep.
Being high on novelty and precedent is pretty wild. Like there are very few things that I can think of that are high on that, on both.
So really fun example of AI being novel. Was listening to an interview with one of the co-founders of OpenAI, Andre Karpathy, who ironically is now going to work for Anthropic, which we talked about last episode. And he just made the awesome comment about how when this stuff is built out originally, we made a decision toward compute being like RAM and CPU. Like those are like two of the fundamental like pieces of compute. And then he also made the comment like we're moving toward this new world where the neural net, which like so far is more this TPU GPU, which is kind of a different hardware set, is becoming like the baseline, and then the CPU like memory is more like auxiliary.
Right.
So that's like a super technical explanation, but the point is like the novelty will go all the way down to the hardware and the data centers and like how the servers are going to be formed and built. It is not just a like software novelty. Like it's all the way down to how we're going to build data centers. I thought that was a really good point.
Yeah. It is so interesting to talk to people who across the spectrum who interact with AI because you have people who the precedent is this is so much better than Google search, right? And it's like, yes, that is Google search is a great precedent. And yes, it is better than Google for this, right? But it's so much more novel than a better Google search, right? It can do so much more.
Right.
And so I think with any technology, but we're discussing AI specifically, if you're high on all three of those quadrants, I think it's pretty safe to say that it's a big deal.
Right.
So that's where I'm at. AI is actually a big deal.
Wow. So what would you say, like wrapping this up, other than these quadrants, what is the less measurable piece that makes you say it's a big deal? So we just spent 20 minutes on like as scientifically as we some boxes to measure.
Right.
But what's the personal everyday I work with this piece as far as like AI is a big deal?
You can do so much more working with AI. It's an amplifier. So I'll maybe take two angles on this. If you are already really good at something, it's an unbelievable amplifier of those skills. And I actually think that's what probably people notice the most,
right?
Who are very, who talk about AI a lot,
right?
Is that I was already good at this, and I feel like I can do it 10 times faster, or 10 times better, or 10 times more of it, right? And so it's a huge amplifier, which is also that can be a time saver, but it can also mean that you just, sort of
just do more work,
do more work. I think probably the piece that is not talked about nearly as much is that for the curious person, it's such a tool for learning and education.
Right.
It is so much better to try to get your arms around a concept or a technology. I mean, so often I will have AI teach me about something that I don't know.
Right.
And it's so great at that. It can
Right.
build a mini course for you. It can build a quiz for you to
Right.
test your knowledge on something, right? And so it's not just about skills that you already have, but I think it's really incredible for the curious person, amplification of skills and then like much more rapid acquisition of new skills and new knowledge
Right.
is incredible. And I mean, I would say I have talked to multiple people who have described it almost like a drug.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that that's inaccurate necessarily. I want to be careful with that because
Right.
I don't, that's a very loaded analogy.
Right.
But if your mind is super hungry and you're a discerning person, AI is a very, very powerful tool.
Right. Do you remember the movie Limitless?
I do. Yes, I do.
That's what I'm picturing when you're saying drug.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that kind of what you're picturing?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess, I wrote about this on my blog, I don't know, weeks or months ago, but
And I'm trying to capture a feeling like I don't even remember what all he gets out of the drug in Limitless, but just kind of a feeling for a lot of people.
I put off a project that I needed to do. It was actually a presentation for our like annual company gathering, and I was giving a presentation on AI engine optimization. And they do such a good job at Vercel of having someone review your talk with you, and you know they want to make sure it's super high quality. They vet the submissions and everything, and just compared to like the amount of, I would have started on this like weeks and weeks before, but it was just a very different sensation. If you want to talk about the feeling, it wasn't that I was talking about something that I didn't know about, because it's something that I sort of like work in and problems I solve like every day, but I hadn't codified it into an actual presentation.
Right.
And I waited way longer than I would have ever done in my career previously.
Yeah. Right.
But it's because I knew that I had a really good handle on like the basics of what I wanted to say. And my guess was that with AI, I could get the structure done in 2 hours.
Right.
And I did.
Yeah.
And it was great. And I'm not saying that as like, I'm going to procrastinate. It just is, it's a very potent tool.
Right.
If you sort of know how to wield it.
Yeah. All right. I have a personal example.
All right.
So I gave a best man speech at a wedding a few months ago. And I was determined I'm not going to use AI to write this. Like I want this to be real. I want this to be authentic. I want it to be me. But AI was so helpful. So I did multiple iterations of like brain dumps, like transcripts, like clean those up, like use AI like kind of as a light editor. But the most interesting thing was the voice AI and like reading it and like getting feedback per sections, talking about delivery of like, what should I do here? What should I do here? As far as, like a coach, right?
Totally.
It was awesome.
Totally.
And I think those are the things that like people are going to find are super useful. Where like most people, like say you've graduated, like you don't just use it as Google, but then you've graduated to using it to do actual work.
Right.
I think there's this like third thing where you'll do things you wouldn't have done before.
Yes.
Like I never would have like worked on delivery of that. I would have just like written it down, like spent a bunch of time on it, like last minute, like read through it a few times and like, it is what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I think we're going to see an unbelievable unleashing of human creativity because AI is high on every quadrant.
Yep.
Like there are going to be so many new things.
Yep. I think that's the perfect way to end this.
All right. Thank you for joining Token Intelligence, and we will catch you on the next one.